I rewatched Titanic last night,
Great.
which is something I've been meaning to do for a while.
Did you cry?
I didn't know. I just enjoyed a great piece of cinema.
You have no soul. I have to believe that about you now. Not even when the old couple is hugging in the bed knowing they're about to die?
Yeah, I think I've seen the film so many times, it just kind of, the whole thing just kind of washes over me now.
I can't even listen to My Heart Will Go On in the car. If it comes on shuffle, I have to change it because otherwise I'll cry.
That's a banger of a tune too. I forgot how good that was, especially like the crescendo. I forgot about the crescendo towards the end of it.
I love Celine Dion. I don't give a fuck what anyone says.
Yeah, because I used to watch that film so much. I watched that film once a day for like 8 days in a row when I was about 8-9 years old. I got it on VHS for Christmas, and I really liked it because it was I liked the part where the ship sank. I thought it was at the time at 97, it was really well done. Like it was.
Stop lying. You like the timeless love story.
I don't know, like there's a very well done build and release of tension throughout the part of the ship. I don't know why, it just caught my imagination. And also, I think I've spoken to you before about me getting into the whole thing about I got really invested in Titanic over lockdown last year, like obsessed with it. And so I know a lot about it, and I just rewatched the film the first time in like a decade yesterday.
You know how they have like a Titanic themed restaurant? You could be the resident stand-up there, but you just do bits about the Titanic.
Well, if you were a comedian on the Titanic, surely you would have been doing jokes about it. You'd be like, hey, how about this ship? Hey, it's bigger than my ex-wife. Hey-o.
Just instead of like the string quartet as the ship goes down, it's just a comedian doing a tight five.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, it's been on a bombing with you this evening.
Well, yeah, they do say that's the point of honor, isn't it? That a comedian always goes down with the ship.
I've done many a gig like that, so yes, it is.
Well, speaking of going down with the ship, nope, that doesn't work. I'm just going to force this segue in there. Who cares? Murphy McLachlan, Roland Hoffman, welcome to Reanimates. How you going?
Hey,
thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm good, by the way. To answer your question, I also waved when you said that. Forgot we were recording a podcast.
Just for the listeners, Roland waved. It was quite pleasant. He says hello to all of you.
I do. Hello to all listeners.
He's a good boy. Well, today we're doing Urgency from 2010. Little known Jeffrey Combs vehicle for a number of reasons. I could find so little information about this film online. Even the IMDb had barely anything, but I also just really couldn't find a lot of information in general. I'm not really sure why. You know, it's got a couple of actors who you've definitely seen in other things. So,
well, the main guy is from 90210, right?
Yeah, Brian Austin Green is a decent actor.
The one thing, like on IMDb had a one user review, which was actually quite detailed. Like they really is like probably a few hundred words, and they describe Brian Austin Green's most famous role as people being shocked that he used to be married to Megan Fox. Pretty brutal, but yeah.
So it was directed by Kantz or Kantz, Kantz. You don't often see that one name directors.
No, I can only think of it's him and McG. I think are the only two I could really think of.
Unless Cher starts directing at some point. It was also written by Barry Lewis in his one and only credit for anything. So,
Wow.
Yeah, like he did nothing before that. Like not even in other parts of the industry. Like it wasn't even like he was a cameraman or special effects. It was just this and literally nothing else. Very really weird IMDb to have.
I've got more IMDb credits than that guy.
Yeah.
Hey, some of us spent a lot of time at Channel 31. So we open on Dr. Zeffert, who is a gene therapy specialist. Immediately, one of the things that becomes a semi-regular thing that happens in this film starts happening, which is text coming up on the screen.
Yeah. Well, at really weird times. There doesn't seem to be any consistency to when it happens, and it's
It'll usually come up when a new person is introduced. That's fine, but then it'll sometimes come up and just it'll just be a bit of the dialogue.
Yeah, which is a stylistic choice that they don't stick with throughout the entire thing. So it's just weird
because it probably pops up 2 or 3 times really sporadically. It's a bit strange. Yeah, so he's a gene therapy specialist. He is driving home and notices somebody is chasing him, and then someone shoots him through the window and takes his briefcase. The shooter clearly wants something that's on a hard drive. So the opening credits is mostly footage of Los Angeles traffic, which is kind of like a bummer. Like,
kind of a theme for the film, I reckon. It's just
that's true.
Being in traffic.
So we're introduced to our main character, Tony, played by Brian Austin Green, obviously from 90210, but heaps of things. He works for a pharmaceutical company, and his wife, Sophia, Luciana Caro, she was in Blades of Glory. He's trying to download some massive file. It crashes his computer, and he's also received a file in a package in the post. Sophia's... They have you can tell that they have a good relationship, but she is immediately written as like naggy wife because she's constantly like, "Oh, you're never home anymore. I never see you."
There's a very strange choice of it's very jarring editing where he leaves the room as if like, "Sorry, I got to go to work," and then the next scene he's in the living room and she walks in. The previous scene indicated that like he was going to work and that was the end of that. But then he's just
in the next room.
Yeah.
It's on his computer, and she walks in again, and they have the same discussion about leaving for work.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, they do just keep having this discussion where she's like, "No, stay home a bit longer." And he's like, "No, baby, it's an important day. I got an important meeting today." It's like, you know that he has a very stressful, important job. Maybe don't give him shit on this incredibly stressful day, even if it is your anniversary. Yep. Tony's
I don't know how he forgot. Like, if it's on the same day as like this big business thing, how do you forget like the anniversary? Surely that's more of a reminder.
But you're right, Lisa, because like you find out, especially as the film goes on, they're talking about this like this multi-billion-dollar takeover. Like, I feel like it's become a bit unreasonable to have him like stay home or like not go to work. Like, that's a pretty any other day.
Yeah.
Have him stay home. Have him take a sickie. But come on.
Yeah. This is 2010. There was still a recession going, guys. He needs that job. So we meet your friend and mine, Jeffrey Combs, pretty quickly. He plays Sumner, who is Tony's neighbor. He has classic divorced guy energy. He's working in his garden, doing a lot of watering and stuff. My favorite bit of this, and there isn't really any point putting a sound here because you need the visual. Maybe I'll cut the clip and put it on the socials. He's put some beads on a turtle statue, thinking that's going to impress his ex-wife.
Yeah. Did he also say it was for Christmas? Is that...
Yeah, well, it is...
Because I know that's what I associate Christmas with, is a turtle wearing beads.
Yeah. Yeah, the necklace turtle.
You just reminded me, there are a lot of Christmas decorations throughout the film, which indicate it's during December is when the film is set. But there's never any reference to the silly season, and it makes me think, did they just happen to film it during December and that's why?
Well, I think it's heavily implied that it's set around Christmas time or just before Christmas, but then I feel like it's quite clearly like the summer there.
Well, it's in California, which is a notoriously hot place that doesn't really snow even in December. So
thankfully that's the only issue that any of us have with the film, though.
Yeah.
It is smooth sailing from here on. Sumner is also trying to get Tony to get him a job at his work. So yeah, we meet a bunch of the people that Tony is going to be interacting with in this movie. We've got Edward and Janet, Tony's assistant. He arranges to get out of the meeting early to go home and surprise his wife. He's like, "Janet, you organize something." Again, this seems like a really important meeting. I feel like your wife would understand if you get home at like 8:00 for dinner, maybe. Because they say that the meeting has to be finished by 7:30 p.m. Like, just come straight home after work. Like, So at home, Sophia is threatened by 2 strangers and kidnapped.
It's pretty full on. I actually couldn't watch any more of the film after that, so I was just too shaken. So apologies. I don't think I'll be able to comment now.
Too distressed. Yeah, I understand. So when Tony gets home, he finds like a scary message on the answering machine. Scary voice. One of those. What do you call it? Like when they disguise the voice.
Like the digitized.
Yeah, like Tony, we have your wife. I can't do it, but Yep. They tell him classic kidnapper thing of like, don't call the cops, only communicate with us. You need to get in touch with us by 7 p.m. or we kill your wife. Also, we want $50,000 in like 90 minutes. That seems unrealistic.
I know this was, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. Were answering machines still a thing? Like, I don't think I've seen an answering machine for 20 years.
A lot of the tech in this is interesting because only a couple of people have cell phones as well. Whereas I'm like, 10 years ago, people definitely had like smartphones.
Yeah.
Didn't they? Yeah, like
2010, yeah, they definitely would have had mobiles and stuff. They were commonplace probably 5 years before that.
yeah, and even the people that do have cell phones in this have like shit phones. They've got like the big brick Nokias. Yeah, it's really strange.
Maybe it's a period piece.
Oh yeah, it's meant to remind us of the glorious halcyon days of the late 90s. Tony goes to the bank to try to sort out the money. He finds out that he doesn't have as much money in there as he expects, which seems like a red herring because he's like, oh, my wife sorts out the accounts. And so you immediately think, oh shit, is the wife in on it?
Yeah.
But that doesn't come up again. It just turns out he just had less money than he thought.
Yeah. And he's not off by like a little bit either. Like he's off by like $20,000.
Yeah. I think it's just meant to imply his wife is shit with money.
And have you noticed? I found probably wasn't deliberate, but the bank teller character is so funny. Like he's so comical. I feel like he says there hasn't been a withdrawal in months.
Yeah.
Shouldn't it have been there hasn't been a deposit in months, or am I getting confused?
Presumably, yes. That did stick with me as well. Yeah.
Especially because they have a brief frame where they do show the transactions and stuff. And there's heaps of withdrawals, but there's no deposits.
How did they not pick up on? Anyway, okay. Maybe the bank teller misspoke. Maybe it's just a legitimate human error that the character made. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe the actor wanted to make him more relatable.
Yeah.
It's very funny that the bank manager asks him, is there anything wrong? Like, this dude is super upset and stressed out, and he's taking all of the worldly cash he has out of his account and closing the account and then leaves. Mate, I don't think he's doing well.
Something that stood out to me in particular as well was the fact that the bank was open till 6. I was like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
Can we get that here?
Yeah, normally a bank is... Yeah, a bank will close at 4 p.m. and open at 10 so that there's no earthly way you can get there if you work.
Yeah.
Tony, he listens again to the answering machine and he thinks he hears bells. Keep that in mind. I didn't hear shit, but apparently he did.
Me neither.
Yeah. He just goes, well, we know because he goes, is that bells?
Yeah.
So he takes the tape to Sumner. He decides that he's going to get help from his neighbor, who I guess is his best friend, because he doesn't go to anyone else. This is the little conversation they have, which I just thought Jeff was quite funny in this.
Sumner, hey, mackerel, what can I? Look, I'm in a lot of trouble right now, and if I don't get out of here, it's gonna be worse. Can you help me? I need your help. Can I go in your house? Wow. Is that okay? Can we go in? Yeah. That's fine. Yeah. I have no money.
So Tony explains the situation to Sumner. Sumner gives him his cell phone. And again, why doesn't Tony have a cell phone? It's 2010 and he's this like pretty rich dude.
And it seems like he'd need one for his job as well.
Yeah.
He should at least have a company one.
He's a highfalutin dude and he's about to do a big merger. To solve this problem, though, Sumner also gives him these modified baby monitors that they can use for communication. And I will say, the range on these baby monitors is astounding. Like eventually when they're using them, he goes out of range. But he's miles away when that happens.
Oh, yeah.
Is Sumner meant... I'm still not... is he meant to be like a tech head? Is that his shtick? Because after watching the film, I'm still not sure.
I don't think so. Like he doesn't have any more tech knowledge for the rest of the film than anyone else in the film does. Like he manages to, I will say, break into the computer later, but it turns out to be pretty easy. So I feel like anyone else could have done it. Yeah, he doesn't have a lot of defining personality traits apart from being divorced. So But he's also immediately helpful. He's a good guy, stand-up guy. He immediately helps Tony. He's like, we're going to sort this out. So the plan is for Tony to try to get the rest of the money off his boss, the 20 grand that he needs. And then Sumner's going to go to Tony's house to look in his office for clues. Everyone's on the case. This starts the long amount of time that we spend with Tony just in his car, swapping between the cell phone and the baby monitor. I think the phrase, I'll call you back, is said like 30 times in this movie.
Yes, because that's like halfway through, I was like, this is just I'll Call You Back the movie.
For anybody that's into 1930s screwball comedies, I watched His Girl Friday recently the other day. It's an amazing film if you're into Cary Grant, which I am. And that's one of those movies where they, it's one of those like really fast-talking 1930s movies where everybody's like,
all right, go on, take it, work for somebody else. That's the gratitude I get.
Oh, I wish you'd
What were
stop
you when you
panning.
came here 5 years ago? A little college girl from a school of journalism. I took a doll-faced hick.
Well, it wouldn't take me if I hadn't been doll-faced.
Oh, why should I? I thought it'd be a novelty to have a face around here a man could look at without shuddering.
Listen, Walter.
Listen, I made a great reporter out of you, Hildy, but you won't be half as good on any other paper, and you know it. We're a team, that's what we are. You need me, and I need you, and the paper needs both of
Sold
us.
American.
Oh, all right.
it's amazing. It's so funny. And they do a lot of that where they're just like picking up phones, talking on two phones at once,
Right, yeah.
hanging that up, picking that one up. That's what this is like, except with
A Nokia brick and a baby monitor. Doesn't really have the same energy as Cary Grant on an old-time rotary phone, just with the cords everywhere.
somehow not, no. So Tony gets Janet to do a background check on Sumner because Edward starts to, sow some seeds of doubt about whether or not he can trust him. But Sumner's clean. There is a great shot, and I'll post it on the socials. And I actually think I've posted it before, but there's a great little detail of the photocopy of Sumner's license, which just shows him. He's got this big goober face, and it's very silly. Why did he put that on his license?
Yeah, I do like. Speaking of visuals as well, like so the character of Janet, his receptionist, they really hit hard. So many references to her being gay, and like that aren't needed. And the photo on her desk, well, she has several photos on her desk of her partner, and one of them is her girlfriend in a bikini. I'm like, that's not professional. Like, you wouldn't have that at work.
It looks like it's taken like a model shot out of a magazine as well. It's like if you
Yeah.
put that up at work, you would be told to take it down.
Maybe
Yeah.
Janet has an imaginary girlfriend. She's like, this is my girlfriend. Yes, it is, Janet. Yes, it is.
Oh, and while we're on that subject, sorry, this is what I remember earlier in the film when she organizes the anniversary dinner for him and his wife. He's like, oh, if you were into men, I'd make out with you. It's like, what?
There are
What?
several other steps and
Yeah.
boxes that need to be checked before you can just make out with someone.
Yeah, I will take a screen cap later just to make sure, but I'm pretty sure that Janet has a post-it on her computer screen that just says Tony is weird.
Yeah.
Because I was looking at it and I'm like, why would it say that? I mean, he is, but just to remember it. She's like, I got to remember that my boss is weird.
She seems to have a pretty full-on busy role, but that's the only post-it that's on her computer. It just says Tony is weird.
So Tony does go to the park that they're meant to meet, or rather leave the money at. The thing that I find interesting is that the park is called MacArthur Park, which I assume is a famous park in Los Angeles. Is there a reason, and Murphy, this reference will stick with you possibly, is that why there's a character in The Simpsons called MacArthur Parker?
Well, I always assumed that was a reference to the Beatles song, MacArthur Park, which I guess that song is actually named after the park. Yeah, what's his name? Jeff Goldblum's character in the Troy McClure episode.
Yes.
The Simpsons is MacArthur Parker. Yeah.
In Dr. Zayas. Yeah, because I've always thought that was a strange name for a character. And then when they said MacArthur Park, I'm like, oh, okay.
Or maybe the park was named after the Beatles song, and the Beatles song was named after the Simpsons character. Maybe that's
true. The Beatles, famously very big Simpsons fans. All of them, even the ones that died before it started.
Here we go. Maybe it's not a Beatles song. Sorry, I sound like an idiot now. I've got it here. MacArthur Park is a song written by Jimmy Webb that was recorded by Richard Harris in 1968. Maybe the Beatles did a version of it. I don't know, Donna Summer version.
That's what I was trying to think. Yeah, I know Donna Summer's version, so
Yeah,
I didn't
there
know
you go.
if it was a Beatles song or not. Because I hate that song.
Ah, right.
It's famous. I think it goes for like 7 minutes or something. It's about leaving a cake out in the rain. Like, that's literally what the song is about.
And Apu's niece sings it on The
Yeah.
Simpsons as well. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, is that the song where she's like,
And I'll never have that recipe again.
It's
Okay,
like a
so-
7-minute song, literally just about leaving a cake out in a park in the rain. And it's
Wow.
terrible.
no, there must be more to it than that. There has to be some sort of symbolism. The cake is a child who died, maybe. Okay, why are the Simpsons writers obsessed with this song then?
Maybe because it is so oddly simple in context.
I've got it here as well. Homer apparently also sings it in another episode. So there you go.
God.
They love it. This is now MacArthur podcast all about MacArthur Park.
We'll get there someday, guys. So
Yeah.
anyway, Tony he's at the park and he pops it in a bin for the goons to pick up. All the while, Sumner is on his computer trying to track like the kidnappers, like searches on the computer. They were looking for information on something called ZHP, Zephyr hybridization process, which is a gene therapy, basically a cure for cancer that Tony's company has been working on. So, big stakes. The cops who have been following Tony, there's been a couple of cops who have been following him. Terrible actors, those cops. Sorry, guys, but you're not very good. They find the money in the bin and they take it. And Tony is oddly not that stressed out about it, to be honest. He's stressed out a little bit, but not as much as I would have thought. The other thing I noticed in this scene is how dry his lips were.
Well, realistic, I guess. He probably hasn't had a chance to have a drink. So.
Yeah.
Probably why he's so stressed out. He's dehydrated.
Yeah.
Yeah. From memory, his reaction when they take the money is, because he's on the phone to Edward at the time. He's like, no, they're taking the money. No, this is, no.
And then then he's like, it's fine. We'll figure something out. And I was like, really?
Oh, geez.
Gee whiz. It does contain my favorite line in the whole film, which is by a random extra who just goes, yo, is that a bag of money?
Yeah.
As he's walking past. Like, if someone walked past with that bag, it doesn't really look like, there's no dollar sign on it. It doesn't look like it's filled with like money. It could be filled with anything. But he just spots him, just goes, that a bag of money?
Yeah, I thought he was going to get mugged in that scene or something, or he was going to have a fight. But no, he just was like, no, it's not. Like, okay.
And the editing in that one was like the walking freeze frame, more walking, freeze frame, more walking, freeze frame. And then the guys just like freestyle rapping, and then there's like a weird black and white shot of them.
Yeah.
Flashes up.
Yeah, there's like an a cappella rap group in the park.
Yeah.
It's, they're doing For the Longest Time.
Sorry, so speaking of the money, it does also remind me of one of my other favorite things was the wire transfer company, Stern Union, where you can see the sign in the background where they've clearly just covered up the W and E in Western Union.
Oh, of course.
That's great.
Oh, that makes sense now, because there was a couple of times where they were talking about the wire transfer from the boss, and Tony does say there's a Stern Union across from the park, and I was like,
yeah.
is he just like running over his letters where he's not saying Western Union right? And they just couldn't get
that's great.
They couldn't get the rights to use the company name.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
I
weird.
just realized
so obviously their logo with no W and E. Yeah.
What's the director's name again? Sorry, dude.
Cants.
I can just imagine Cants afterwards being sued and being like, I got the worst fucking attorneys.
So Tony tells Janet that it seems to be like some part of some like hostile takeover thing, and that the kidnappers clearly just wanted access to the computer, and the kidnapping was a cover. So bear in mind that theory has already been stated in the film. Just keep that in your mind. So the baddies end up going to Tony's house, and Sumner is trying to hide, and there's some great physical comedy of Jeff playing Sumner, trying to run around the house, trying to find somewhere to hide. He's great. Tony tells the kidnappers via the answering machine that he has a deal that they want. They will organize a trade, a disc for a wife. Janet patches through a voicemail from the now dead Zephyr, telling Tony that Edward falsified data on the gene therapy report. This is where I started to get a little bit confused. Just a little bit. There's a lot of names being thrown around in this bit.
Sorry, this is where you started getting confused. Okay,
Yeah.
well done.
It was pretty cut and dry up until then, I think you'll find, Murphy. Edward tells Tony that Zephyr was probably working with their competitors, but Tony doesn't see through that shit. Tony tells Sumner to check in his car for the hard copy of the file that Zephyr was trying to get to him. Sumner manages to get into Tony's car with a spare key that's attached to the bumper. That's so dumb. Why would you leave a spare key on the car? Do people do that?
Yeah, that's what I was
must be
thinking.
a thing.
I only ever
don't
see that
know
shit in
why.
movies. Like, you know when people get into a car to steal it in movies and there's a key behind the sun visor?
Yeah,
Do people really do that? Because that's mental.
they must do. It's so weird. But like, surely it'd come off whilst
Yeah.
driving. Because I know like there was a thing like you have those magnetic L plates and P plates, but they'd come off if you went too fast. So
Yeah.
surely a key on the bumper would do the same.
Well, he says it's magnetic, but even then, like, A, it would come off, and B, then wouldn't you just, like, if you were someone who wanted to steal a car, wouldn't you just walk up to cars and just feel the bumper? Yeah.
And he gets it pretty easily. He puts he's like gets it within 3 seconds. He doesn't have to do much mucking around. Puts his head under, gets the key, gets in.
I mean, the visor one is the most interesting because why would you have a spare key for a car you can't get into inside a car?
Yeah. So
Like
at least they didn't have something that unrealistic. By the way, is the main character, he's using Sumner's car during all this, right? Sumner gave him...
At this point, he is, yes. All right, so Edward admits to falsifying data in the clinical trials, but he doesn't know anything about the kidnapping. So he is dirty, but in a different way. But he did kill Zephyr. He did get him killed.
And that was because that he wanted the business deal to go ahead. So he wanted the company to get bought, and he knew that they wouldn't buy the company if they knew that this medication was dodgy. Is that essentially it?
Yeah. There's a big
this...
info dump at one point where Tony is talking about the merger and the clinical trials and Zephyr and everything. It appears to be something about maybe Zephyr was going to release the information about the clinical trials, and Edward just really wanted the merger to happen. Big merger, lots of money. The baddies are in Tony's office. Sumner's looking for files on the disk. There's a lot happening. Sumner's in his own house, I think it looks like. Edward is suddenly in Sumner's house with a gun. Chasing, fighting, all that stuff ensues. It's the fight scenes are not terribly well choreographed, I will say. One of the kidnappers stabs Edward. She's dressed oddly for a hostage situation,
yes.
I would have thought.
Yeah, she's
dressed super fancy. She's wearing like a strapless tube dress, mini dress, and stiletto heels. That is not ideal for an active hostage situation.
Yeah.
It's like she wasn't told that's what they were going to be doing that day.
Yeah, it's like, you know, when people don't give you like dress parameters, it's like, oh, what am I supposed to wear to lunch? Oh, you know, just like, you know, casual, fancy, you know, work casual, like smart casual. You know. Sumner helps the kidnappers move Edward's body, which is immediately a red flag. You're like, hey, this has come out of nowhere.
That's what I thought. I was like, wait, what?
This whole ending kind of confused me because I didn't know which house they were in, because it goes between Sumner's and Tony's, and then Sumner's good, but the whole ending confused me a little bit. I didn't know where we were or what was going on a little bit.
Because they kind of allude that Sumner might be behind it, because when what's his name? What's the main guy's name?
Tony.
Tony. Yeah, when he's listening, he finally sort of figures out what that noise is in the recording, and it's the sprinkler. Is that what it ends up being?
That's what.
I think it's supposed to be.
That's what I didn't understand. When he's like, "Oh, it sounds like bells," it then cuts to the footage from earlier of Sumner fiddling with his sprinklers. Why would sprinklers sound like bells?
I was confused. But then, so that's meant to imply, Sumner might be involved. But then the reveal, I guess, is just the casual shot of him helping her move the body. It's like, what?
Yeah.
You could have done
not
it a
very
bit
dramatic.
more dramatically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because it just happens as if like you already know that he's in on it. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's Sumner helping the kidnapper lady. Wait, what? Why is he
Is
doing
he just
that?
being polite? Or...
Like, here, that'd be
This'll-
hard to do in heels. I'll help you out with that.
Maybe this will impress my wife and
Yeah,
she'll
yeah.
come back to me. Sumner starts packing a bag. Sumner is helping the kidnappers, and you're like, oh, this fucking low dog. This low dog has gone against his mate. His best friend, apparently. Yeah, it is weird because you at the start you don't think that Tony and Sumner are friends because they have one interaction like through the window where they're just having a small talk. Yeah, it's like it's not super friendly. Like it's not like Tony's like super happy to see him. He's not like, hey Sumner, how you going? How's the job hunt? Tony's just like,
if anything, he seems kind of annoyed by him. The weird neighbor.
Yeah.
But then, and it still gives that impression as it goes on, though, because then he gets Janet to do a background check on him. Does he purely just go to him because he's close by?
I guess, like proximity shouldn't
be.
take precedence in that. Like you should, in terms of this situation, you should go for someone that you can trust with a very heavy situation. The thing
And
I
he
like
defends him so much to Edward. He's like, are you sure you can trust him? He's like, yes. All of a sudden he's like, yes, I can trust my neighbor. He's my neighbor and my friend, and I trust him with my life.
Yeah,
like,
he's like, he's normal. He's a good guy.
And we did gloss over this earlier, but there is a 10 seconds while he's getting the background check done where he doesn't quite trust Sumner, or he's a bit like, okay.
Yeah.
So when he's like, he won't give him his password.
Yeah.
He's just like, don't worry about it, actually.
Yeah.
And Sumner's like, I want to see what they've been looking for on the computer. Then we can figure out what they wanted. And he's like, nah. Don't worry about it. It's fine. But then, Sumner quickly realizes he goes into his wife's account on the computer. Although I would argue that it's still admin. Sumner does eventually, quote unquote, hack into Tony's wife's account, finding out that her password is Tony.
Yes, that's right.
Which straight up, it sounds like one of those passwords where the computer definitely would have been like not secure enough. You need to try at least a number in there. Throw a number in there.
We have a bit of a shootout with our baddies and our cops. Tony goes home. More fighting. Kidnapper lady gets shot. One guy gets thrown off a balcony. Sumner takes out another bad guy for his gun. And then he shoots a cop, which makes you think that maybe Sumner's not a good guy. I mean, like, you shouldn't shoot anyone. But in a film, regardless of what you think about cops, in a film, if you shoot cops, you're normally a bad guy. Films normally make that clear. Tony does confront Sumner, and Sumner tells him that he was only supposed to get the disc with the files and the clinical trials and all that shit on it. And it spiraled out of control. And as he already thought of earlier, it was the case of the kidnapping was just a ruse to cover up the fact that Sophia wasn't meant to be home at the time. And they just had to get her out of the house because they needed to find the files. Sumner and Tony have a fight. And it really does look like Jeffrey Combs is choking Brian Austin Green in this.
Why did you convince me to do this?
Yeah, like they have a fight where it's like, you know, obviously they can't afford like stunt doubles and stuff, so they just have this sort of like roughhousing fight. But it does look like they're trying to hurt each other. I wonder if it's fun to fight in movies. I've never been in a fight, so I don't know how much fun fights are.
I've never really been in a fight either, to be fair.
Really?
No,
but you go to lots of soccer games.
Yeah. Well, they usually get they separate the supporters, so it doesn't happen.
Oh, so there isn't even any punch ups outside, like.
No, I've seen something go close, but then people broke it up. So yeah, it doesn't happen often. Not in Australia, anyway.
Not in Australia.
Yeah, maybe like an Aussie rules game it would, but
yeah, I was gonna say more likely at the AFL. I've seen all sorts of fights at the AFL when I was a kid. Sophia, by this time, has escaped her clutches. She's been tied up all this time. She finds a gun and she shoots Sumner. Oh, I mean, I know it was a bad guy, but it was a bit of fun. They're happy to see each other, and then we have the sort of wrap up in the end of like the takeover bid is cancelled. Edward is arrested for falsifying data, and Tony's fine. I think he says something about how like his direct manager hasn't been implicated, so they've all still got a job tomorrow. And then Janet's like, "Can I have the day off tomorrow?" And he's like, "Sure, baby."
There's also that bit earlier in the film where he asks her to break into the someone's office, and he goes, "I'm gonna ask for a raise next week."
Yeah.
It's like people are dying. Like maybe you don't.
There's a bit where he's talking to Sumner, and he says, Sumner's like, "What did you notice anything weird? Like anything?" And he's like, "Yeah, my door was closed, and I never close it." And then a few scenes later, Sumner is going through his house and like, "Yeah, so your door is open, and that's weird, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I thought it was weird because my door was open." And I was like, "But you
I didn't notice that."
I even rewound it to make sure I hadn't misheard. Legit, like he says the complete opposite thing.
It's so funny that things like that get past people. Like, I think it must just be a thing for like maybe low budget films. There's such a small team, and the director is having to think about so many other things at once. Maybe that a small flub in the script is like the least of their problems because they're just trying to like get the cameras running and stuff.
There's no money for a continuity guy.
I imagine
just like actually,
and nobody will notice.
Also, I mean, we already specified this guy's only ever written one film ever and done nothing else in the film industry.
Yeah.
There could be a reasoning behind that.
I can definitely see the merits of this film in a lot of ways. Like, I can see how, because they make films like this all the time. A guy racing against time. You've got the ticking clock. You've got the stakes. Got a lot of stakes. You've got the wife and the merger. Yeah, it's got a lot of drama to it. It's just not executed well. Like a lot of the the cuts are really distracting. The editing on this was the
editing is insane. Yeah,
frustrating. Like a lot of it, like it'll go into slow motion for no reason. Maybe the theory is it was like a favor sort of thing.
Yeah, I got that impression by I feel like whoever was involved making the film was like, good friends with people that were in it, or like, I don't know. Yeah, I think you're right, Deb. I think a lot of favors were probably, and it probably didn't take that long to make the film. Like you said, a lot of the same locations are used. Like half the film is in the house or the office. So it probably didn't take that long to make.
But again, it's, there's lots of films like that where I'm just like, this isn't like an amazing film, but if you're a working actor, you'd probably just be like, fuck it, I just want to keep doing stuff. I just want to keep making films,
Yeah. It's not great, but it's not offensively bad.
It does have that kind of student film vibe where it's like, someone's working stuff out.
Yeah. That's it. Like he's also the best part of this movie as well. Like it's
Yes.
Yeah.
I thought for a sec that he was only gonna have one scene, like that bit where he talks to him at the start was his one cameo, and I was like, okay.
Yeah.
But then he came back, I was like, all right, okay, cool.
Yeah, it's really interesting to watch films like this because you can see what they were going for, and you can see what the idea was. And I guess with low budget films, you always wonder, was the hindrance the money or the idea? Like, because there's lots of low budget films that have really great ideas, and whether or not they have the money to execute them is one thing. Something like Evil Dead was really good at putting out really good ideas really well with not much money. But then other low budget films you watch where it's like, oh, the money isn't the problem here. The problem is that you don't have you don't have enough creativity in your well to make this an interesting enough movie.
I think there are a few factors in play here. Like like you said, the editing was a huge factor. Honestly, there's some amazing big budget action films that have worse plots than this. Like with action films, the plot isn't really a big issue, so I won't go too hard on that. But like, yeah, so many mistakes in dialogue. Fair bit of poor acting as well. And it just felt like quite student filmy, a lot of it.
See, I actually didn't think the acting was that bad because I've watched a lot of low budget movies. Yeah, I've seen some truly terrible acting where you just kind of look at it and go, wow, how did that even make it to the screen? That was very poor. But this I think was fine. I mean, there was a couple of extras who weren't very good, but then the main cast I think was doing fine.
I actually wasn't a huge fan of Tony, and I was actually surprised when I found out afterwards that he was like not a huge name, but like that he's been in so much stuff that I was like, oh really? I felt like maybe he just didn't fit the role that he was meant to have that much. Like his whole thing is he's meant to be like a big shot business guy who's like a real good the whole reason they want him in that meeting, right, is because he's a real good
negotiator.
But the whole film he felt quite whiny and stupid and like
I haven't seen him in a lot else, so I can't necessarily judge. What was interesting is that I felt like he was playing this character on one note. So there was no variance in his emotional acting. He was just kind of on the same emotional level the whole film, despite everything that's happening. He's finding out really, very dramatic information, and his wife's been kidnapped, and there's a gunfight, and he's just kind of on the same emotional tier the whole time without any.
Jeez. Oh man.
Yeah.
Oh, my wife's been kidnapped. Dagnabbit.
Because I did find him very whiny as well. It was just kind of like he should be angry and upset, but also like worried and everything. But the entire time he just kind of felt like, "Give me back my wife." He was like,
guys, quit it.
Come on.
As I often do. I definitely liked what Jeffrey Combs was doing as well. I liked this sort of, and I wish that there was a bit more. He was playing the role fairly comedically, but I wish there had been actively more comedic lines written for him because he's very funny. Like he does a lot of fun sort of physical comedy stuff, which he's quite good at.
Was it just the editor of like getting bored? He was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna fuck around with this for a little bit."
Maybe that was like the joke version that he made, and it got swapped.
Yeah. I love it. I was like, really? Okay.
Yeah, it's like when your grandma gives you a Christmas present. Oh, it's great. I love what you've done with my film. Oh, I'll put it up on the mantelpiece.
How the dialogue comes across on the screen, and that's a thing throughout the film. Yeah, no, just the first 15 minutes. Cool. That's.
Oh, and then it pops up somewhere in the 45-minute mark, and then doesn't come back. All right, okay.
Yeah, okay, cool.
It's what all the films are doing these days, isn't it, darling?
The man at the shop said, "This is what all films are like these days."
I heard that Guy Ritchie does the exact same thing. It is difficult often to recommend Jeffrey Combs films to people because he has done a huge amount of horror films. I would say for you guys and for any non-horror fans listening, because I know that some people have come to the fandom from Star Trek, or maybe they're not even in the fandom and they're just listening to this podcast because they like me, perhaps. Why is that funny, Murphy?
No, there's a lot of big dib heads out there.
Yeah, Dibberinos. I would recommend one of my comfort Jeffrey Combs films, which is called Dr. Mordred, which is basically Doctor Strange. It actually was meant to be a Doctor Strange film, but they lost the rights. And it's lovely. He just plays a really kind, nice sorcerer, doing battle with an evil sorcerer. Very high stakes, but ultimately the good guy wins. And it's lovely. It's a huge amount of fun. I highly recommend it. And that's also on Tubi, which I'm going to plug yet fucking again. I plug it every week, apparently, on this podcast.
When I was looking for this film on there, I did see a film called Titanic 2.
Ooh.
Which
I wonder
is
what happens. Do they bring the Titanic back to life?
I don't know. I didn't click on it, but I definitely will at some stage in the next few weeks when I'm still bored in lockdown. But it did have the tagline, I believe, was 100 years later, history repeats or something like that. And I was like, okay, so it's just a ship that's going to sink again.
Yeah, it's going to be a ship that's called Titanic 2. They're going to call it Unsinkable, and then it's going to hit a fucking iceberg. And they're going to be like, what? Again?
Who could have predicted?
There's going to be a couple on there that are called like Dax and Schmoes.
Schmoes.
Oh, I couldn't think of a good rhyme. They fall in love and they fuck in the back of a Toyota Yaris that's on the car. That's in the boat.
Yeah, so this is also from 2010. A century after the fateful voyage of the original modern luxury liner Titanic 2 set sail, will this ship suffer the same fate as her namesake? I'm guessing yes.
Probably
no.
Yes.
And the film is just about a boat ride that goes. Yeah.
Just a really nice boat ride. Two people fall in love and they both survive and get married. And then 100 years after that, they tell the story of how they had a really good marriage and it was great. I think Titanic 2 should be based on, instead of a boat hitting an iceberg, a boat should hit the Titanic. It has come up out of the water and it's like shaped like its hull is like up in the water like an iceberg, and they hit it, and then so the Titanic sinks the Titanic too. I
mean, that would be incredibly poignant.
Yes, very deep, very meaningful, I think.
Yeah, I got the tagline wrong. It says 100 years later, lightning strikes twice.
Oh, okay.
Wait, is that like a fun metaphor, or do you think lightning hits the boat and it sinks?
Like that's what I'm getting from it, because based off the poster as well.
Oh yeah.
It's like just stormy waters, so I assume that might be it.
I wonder if Billy Zane is in this one. So that's Urgency, 2010. Definitely a film.
Yeah,
definitely a film that happens.
Yeah. I wouldn't say that I like hated it, but I didn't particularly like it. Like it really just had so little effect on me, apart from, I found the scenes with Jeff quite enjoyable, but apart from that, it just made no impact on me, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's like if you were off sick from work one day and it was just like on as the midday movie, you'd sit down and be like, fine.
Yeah.
I'll sit through this, and you'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
Yeah, I wasn't like bored by it. Like I've films that are critically acclaimed, I have not enjoyed because I've like just found boring. So it didn't have any of that to it. It was ridiculous. At no point was I like, like I want to like fast forward this or anything. Like, I was enjoying the ridiculousness of it, I guess. Good on them.
Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm probably more excited to watch Titanic 2. I'm very curious.
It's on my watch list for the next couple of weeks, I reckon.
My favorite bit of Titanic, I'm just going to talk about Titanic now. My favorite bit of Titanic is when Rose, when we first meet Rose, and she goes, I don't see what all the fuss is about. It doesn't look any bigger than the Mauritania. She's great.
Maybe in this film, she says, I don't see what all the fuss is about. It doesn't look any bigger than the original Titanic.
It doesn't look any bigger than the Spirit of Tasmania.
Yeah.
Who's your favorite character in Titanic, Roland? Go.
Ooh, there's so many. Probably the Irish guy Tommy, who's one of his friends. Like they meet on the boat.
Yeah.
Who says, and I'm not going to do the accent because that would be offensive and bad. But he's like, you had a better chance angels flying out of your ass than getting next to the likes of her. He's very sweet character. He's almost supposed to be he almost feels like a comic relief kind of character, but he's in like 3 scenes.
Yeah, and then he dies.
Yeah, and then he dies really tragically.
Murphy, have you seen Titanic? Or is this all going over your head?
Yeah, I was gonna bring this up earlier, but I was like, gone too far. I'm just gonna have to pretend I haven't seen it in full. Well, I think it's one of those films where I've seen enough fragments of it over the years from being on TV and stuff that I probably have seen the whole film, but not cover to cover. So, or credit to credit, whatever you say for a film.
And like, if you don't watch Titanic, then Titanic 2 is not going to make any sense.
You're all right. Good point. All right. Watch it right after.
If only Jeffrey Combs had like a small part in. I'm imagining him as one of those people on the bridge when the iceberg hits, who's like kind of running around doing yelling stuff.
Yeah, I would say there's like first class. He'd be second class.
Yeah.
He'd have like, not necessarily like a top hat, but he'd have like a nice waistcoat, rolled up shirt, and he'd have a kid who's like pushing a stick, pushing a wheel with a stick.
A hoop on a stick. A hoop with a stick.
Or you could just use your editing skills, Dib, and make a recut of Titanic, but with him as Jack. I reckon you can do it.
When I was watching that movie again last night, there's no other character in film or television I think about more than the guy who falls off the back of the boat and hits the propeller on the way down.
Oh, yes. Oh, God. I mean, that's worse than
stuck...
things that are in some horror movies, honestly. That's nuts.
That's intense.
Donk.
That part.
That sound. Oh.
It's not quite, but almost is a comical sound effect as well.
Yeah.
It's like a real little
bonk.
dinky kind of bink. Yeah.
Yeah, like an ice cube hitting a window.
Yeah.
I bet it sucks being in a shipwreck.
Yeah.
Roland, Murphy, anything to plug? Roland, you go.
My new podcast, The Titanic and Me, is launching.
Genuinely, I would love
next
that.
Week. Look, I'm thinking about it now. I don't have anything to plug just yet, but I usually say this at the end of any podcast I'm on, is just follow me on Twitter at Roland Hoffman. That's all I got.
Well, I am starting a podcast all about the Titanic. Called Pod Me Like One of Your French Girls. I have a Simpsons podcast, which we've both been on, and it's called Murph's Tavern, and it's online, believe it or not. So yeah, just search Murph's Tavern. Probably search Murph's Tavern podcast, because there is actually a pub in Ireland called Murph's Tavern.
Oh, really?
So hey, check them out if you want. If you're planning a trip to Ireland, or if you're based there, then
if you're in the area, check it out.
I go through a different episode of The Simpsons every episode from the first 8 seasons. Check it out online, and I've got other stuff as well, which you can find at murphymclaughlin.com. Thanks for having me on this podcast, Dib.
And as usual, you can find this podcast on Twitter and Instagram at ReanimatesPod. Reanimates Podcast on Facebook and Tumblr, and Reanimates Podcast on YouTube as well, where I try to put the episodes up. Try to put them up as quick as possible after the episode goes out, but don't rush me. I'm busy. I've got a lot of balls in the air. I'm busy businesswoman. Leave me be.
Maybe you can do the sign off that Roland does for his which of us has the Titanic podcast that I do my Titanic podcast, which is bye Titanic.